Good evening and welcome to this week's session. We have been discussing Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, the way of the Bodhisattva. And Shantideva's Bodhisattva Avatara basically explains the most important method to reach the absolute bodhicitta, or the mind of awakening. In other words, Buddhahood, enlightenment. So in order to, in the Mahayana text, it is said that in order to reach the state of Buddhahood, one must follow the path of bodhicitta. So actually, the path is the path of bodhicitta. So as I mentioned earlier, bodhicitta, or the mind of awakening, there are two different kinds of mind of awakening. First, the relative bodhicitta, or the relative mind of awakening, that is generated through the support of teacher, Mahayana teacher, through the support of compassion, through the bursting out or gushing out of the one's own Buddha nature, or in other words, the ultimate bodhicitta everybody has within. And that bodhicitta is also generated through the accumulation of merit, through good actions, good thoughts and actions, basically. So that is the relative bodhicitta. And the ultimate bodhicitta is actually the actual primordial bodhicitta is present in all beings as Tathagata Garbha, or the Buddha nature. So the basic potential or the basic nature of all beings. As long as you have mind, one should be completely sure that you have the intrinsic ultimate bodhicitta, Tathagata Garbha, because the nature of mind is the ultimate bodhicitta. And so that is in order to actualize or reveal, unveil this primordially present ultimate bodhicitta within, then we follow the path. We do the study, hearing, then contemplation, the practice, and meditation. So that is the whole purpose of following the path in Buddhism, in Buddha's teachings, in the teaching of the Buddha. So the ultimate bodhicitta is through the accumulation of merit, through hearing the teachings from Buddhas and the qualified teachers. Then you contemplate, and after contemplating, then you do the practice. So the practice is, there are two different kinds of practice. One is the practice of accumulation of merit. Any mental or the physical practice, any mental or bodily practice, so actions, the positive actions you do with your body, speech, and mind, that is not accompanied by the understanding of the absolute truth, absolute nature of things, absolute nature of mind and things, that is but accompanied or rooted in compassion, bodhicitta. So that is the relative bodhicitta, that is the accumulation of merit. So when you can apply your understanding of the ultimate nature of things and your mind, then at that moment you go beyond any kind of reference, such as you are accumulating the merit, you are performing the positive actions, and there's such a thing as a positive action, and on whom, with whose support you perform that action in a positive action, when you are able to go beyond any kind of reference or fixations, and that is called the accumulation of wisdom. So your action, the virtuous action, the positive action becomes the accumulation of wisdom. So that means, it doesn't mean that you have to, accumulate merit in one place, and to accumulate wisdom, you have to go to another place. That is not the case. So if I may recall, what Buddha taught in the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, know the suffering, abandon the cause of suffering, attain cessation, and rely on the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. So in order to go beyond the suffering and attain nirvana, you don't have to go anywhere, basically, so to speak. If you really understand what Buddha has to explain, Buddha has to teach. So there is the suffering, the suffering, different kinds of sufferings. So like the suffering upon suffering, the suffering of change, the all-pervasive suffering. So knowing that, recognizing that you are suffering, you have suffering, then you want to get rid of the suffering. You generate that longing or the wanting to get rid of the suffering. Then you examine the cause of the suffering. Where does this suffering come from? So in order to get rid of the suffering, you need to uproot and destroy the cause of the suffering, the root of the suffering, that is the ego clinging to the self, and the corresponding negative emotions. All kinds of emotions, actually, like even the positive emotions are suffering, cause of suffering. So you need to destroy or uproot or transform those sufferings. So in order to do that, then you apply the path, the method. So method is the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom. In other words, just to make it simple, then basically in the general, Buddhist teachings, there's the practice of the shamatha and vipassana, the meditation to develop one-pointed concentration, so that you can bring the mind under your control to the focus, so that you can look into the nature of mind and the things, And when you are able to look into the nature of things and the mind and understand and experience the nature of mind and the phenomenon, that is the penetrative insight or vipassana. So through that practice, through applying those methods, then you go beyond. You transcend suffering and the cause of suffering, and the state of being free from this suffering and the cause of suffering is labeled as nirvana. So there's no such, independently existing place called nirvana in Buddhism. It doesn't exist. So in order to attain nirvana, it is all the studies we do, contemplation we do, analysis we do, these are all aimed towards understanding the basic truth. So the understanding of the basic truth, the direct or the practical understanding and experience of the the basic truth is the absolute Buddha, bodhicitta. And it is also, when it is fully perfected, is called prajnaparamita, transcendental wisdom, the perfection of wisdom. It is also called the Buddhahood. It is also called Dharmakaya. It is called enlightenment. It is called liberation. It's called nirvana. So different names are used depending on the context, how you are using it. So in order to reach to the absolute bodhicitta, we begin by generating the relative bodhicitta. So in the relative bodhicitta, there are two different kinds of relative bodhicitta. There's the bodhicitta of aspiring and the bodhicitta of entering, or the application bodhicitta. Aspiring bodhicitta is, that there's something called basic truth, fully understanding of which is called the Buddhahood. When you attain Buddhahood, then you can manifest all the enlightened qualities and benefit, infinite benefit for oneself and others. So that is the Buddhahood, quality of the Buddhahood. Extraordinary quality of Buddhahood. Buddha has three qualities, mainly three qualities. Okay, one is knowledge, wisdom, Chen. Wisdom, knowledge. Another one is compassion. And third is power. Power has nothing to do with, being able to, lift a building with, this little finger. It has nothing to do with that. Power is that confidence and the ability and the skills to teach the truth to other beings and liberate those beings from the ignorance of not understanding the truth. That is the power. So in order to reach that state, then we first generate the relative, because we can't get to that straight away. So we generate the relative bodhicitta. So relative bodhicitta, there's a bodhicitta of aspiring to, wishing or generating this intention to attain Buddhahood in order to help others attain Buddhahood. Because you cannot give Buddhahood, just like that you cannot transfer Buddhahood to others. Buddha himself categorically said that the only way I can guarantee you, the other beings, liberation is through showing the path of truth. Showing the truth. I can only teach you truth and the methods to get to the truth. Otherwise, I cannot, wipe away your defilements, negative actions with my hands. I can't do that. Nor can I take your, all the negativities you have into myself. I can't do that. It is individual. So enlightenment has to be attained individually. That is what the teaching of Buddha is. So, bodhicitta of aspiring. So, you aspire to attain Buddhahood. When you attain Buddhahood, you can really help other beings attain the same level of the Buddhahood. Then, just making aspiration doesn't accomplish the job. You don't accomplish the job by just making aspiration, just by thinking of going to somewhere else. You don't reach there. You don't get there. So you have to do something. So you make a wish, you think of going somewhere else, then you need to prepare, make preparations, and then actually go. So likewise, after making this aspiration, after generating this aspiration to attain Buddhahood for the sake of other beings, then you make this commitment to follow the path, to follow the methods, practice the methods. Practice the methods, as I always repeat, is study, hearing, contemplation, and meditation, basically. So, meditation, again, hearing, contemplation, meditation. Then there are different kinds of hearing, contemplation, and meditation. So basically, in the Bodhisattva path, the application bodhicitta or the entering bodhicitta is to make a commitment to practice the 6 perfections called the 6 paramitas. To practice generosity. The details of what is generosity will come in the 4th chapter. So, 5th chapter, basically. So, generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, perseverance, diligence, effort. Actually, it's effort. That we need to understand, because we need to make effort. Enlightenment doesn't come just like that. So effort and concentration, meditation, and wisdom, which is the single most important factor for enlightenment. As Shantideva himself says in the 9th chapter. So what I have thought is we will go through these 2 chapters, these two sessions, and next 2 sessions we will try to get ourselves confused with what Shantideva has to say about wisdom. So by just taking out some verses from his 9th chapter. Because in some texts, the wisdom is taught first. For example, there's a text called Prajna Paramita. Prajna Paramita, Abhisamaya Alankara actually is called. It's a Prajna Paramita, the transcendental wisdom text, written by the Bodhisattva Maitreya, I think, Maitreya, Bodhisattva Maitreya, and brought into this world by one master, great master called Asanga. So in there, Prajna Paramita is taught first. The transcendental wisdom, the highest wisdom is taught. The ultimate wisdom is taught first in there, in order to invoke inspiration and enthusiasm. Because we are result-oriented. We look for the result, the attainment. So if there is something to attain, then we, if there's some kind of a goal, then we feel inspired, and we feel we have we generate interest. So then, in order to generate the bodhicitta, then you need to know what is bodhicitta and what is the benefit of bodhicitta, because we also look for benefit. When we do something, then we look for benefit. So the benefit or the virtue of generating bodhicitta has been explained in the 1st chapter, such as, the moment you generate the bodhicitta or the mind of awakening, you become a bodhisattva. Your name changes. your name, the usual, normal, ordinary name transforms into, bodhisattva. You become a bodhisattva, and your actual being or your value also changes. So you become an object of reverence of, not just human beings, also of the gods. So that kind of a benefit. And also in order to, because we have emotions, as long as we have emotions, we cannot deny that we also do wrong things, negative things, consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously, physically or mentally. So through that, we accumulate negative merit, negative actions. So in order to purify those negative actions, bodhicitta is the single most powerful antidote to wash away this. I think it's not good to use this word. We hardly use this word in Buddhism. Sin. Sin. Wash away the sin. We call it negative karma. Bad karma or negative karma. Wash away this. The bodhicitta is the most powerful antidote. So, similarly, there are so many. And bodhicitta can transform your impure body into a precious, invaluable body of a Buddha, like that of Shakyamuni Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. So these are the benefits. So through this, then we kind of get some inspiration to generate the bodhicitta. So in order to generate the bodhicitta, as I mentioned, we need to accumulate merit and purify the defilements. So one is the supporting factor, the harmonious condition, the supporting condition, and defilement is the obstructing conditions. We need to get rid of the obstructing condition. Even when we do things, we have to have these two factors. The supporting factor, the supporting conditions. We need to try to, gather and build up that supporting factor and get rid of the obstructing factor, the obstacles, so the defilements. So in order to do that, then there is this practice, the practice of making offerings. In the Mahayana practice, mainly actually, there are 8 different mentioned in here, 8 different kinds of practices in order to, purify the mind and accumulate merit so that bodhicitta will take birth in our mind stream, in our being, take root in our being. The seed of bodhicitta can be sown. In the beginning of this, the first chapter says that, the support. I mentioned the support on which bodhicitta grows. So you can generate bodhicitta. So the support of mental support, the mind has to be pure, free from defilements, free from negative attitudes. So virtuous thought, basically. So virtuous thoughts come from merit, accumulation of merit, and the blessings of the Buddhas. Blessings of the Buddhas, you can take it in 2 ways, literally or not literally. Literally you can say, the blessings of the Buddhas, because we believe that relatively we are able to do good things through the blessings of the Buddhas. But another one is the blessings of the Buddha means Buddha is already within there, inside, but when the causes and conditions, the positive causes and conditions gather momentarily, for a, snap of a finger, then they manifest. It reveals itself out. So that is also like blessing of the Buddha. So in order to do that, to make this happen all the time, then we are the prescribed methods to do that, to accumulate the merit and purify the defilements. The only reason why that Buddha, which is present within our being, cannot reveal is it's been, I don't know how to say, buried in this heap of defilements. So in order to do that, in the second chapter, Shantideva mentions 4 methods, 4 different kinds of practices. First is the practice of making offerings. This is a very Indian thing. In India, irrespective of whether it is Buddhist practice or non-Buddhist practice, the Indian wisdom traditions have this making offerings, different kinds of offerings. All this in Buddhism, we do this argam, badam, drinking water, fish water, and feet washing water. These are from India. So, offerings. So, first is the method to make offerings. Second is prostration, doing prostration, paying homage and doing prostrations. Third is taking refuge. That is very important. In Buddhism, especially in Buddhism, taking refuge is very important. And fourth is confessing and purifying the negativities, all the negative actions one has committed and accumulated. So in the offering, there are, I think, 4 different kinds of offerings. So mentioned in here, I think 5 different kinds of offerings. So in the offering, there are 5 different kinds of offerings. One is the actual offerings, the substantially present offerings, physically present offerings. So the offerings you can physically afford to offer, such as the drinking water, feet washing water, lamps, flour, food, this kind of offerings. So whatever physical offerings you can afford to offer. So these are the actually present offerings, the substantial offerings, and then mental offerings. So the imagined offerings. So the offering, the things that you don't own, that you can offer mentally, but the things that you own, you can offer, substantially. You can actually offer those. But the things you don't own, you cannot offer actually, but you can mentally offer. That's the second kind of offering. And the offerings through aspiration, making aspiration, through making aspiration. And then the supreme kind of offering, the unsurpassable offering. So I will just explain later on a little bit. And then the offering of praise, melodious praise. So basically, why we are making this offering? First is, what is the purpose of making this offering? Is that is to prepare the ground of your body and mind to generate the bodhicitta, this precious bodhicitta, which has infinite benefit, the temporary benefit and the ultimate benefit. So that those benefits have been explained in the first chapter. That temporary benefit, such as you become a bodhisattva, you become an object of reverence by gods and humans and so on. And the ultimate benefit is the attainment of liberation, nirvana, Buddhahood, ultimately. So absolute enlightenment. So in order to generate that kind of precious bodhicitta, then one needs to prepare. So for the sake of preparing, then first you make the offerings to accumulate merit. Offering is also an antidote for certain emotions. For instance, offering is an antidote for, I think, desire, attachment, basically. Being miserliness. Because, offering is also practice of generosity. When we practice generosity, because of our habit and our upbringing and so on, our influence, then we feel much more comfortable and easy to make offering to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the higher beings, than giving it to somebody else. So that's why offering. And also, actually, in Buddhism, the object of offering, there's a difference in the accumulation of merit, the degree. How much you accumulate merit also has to do with the object of offering, the object of your generosity. Since Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are pure and enlightened beings, then when you make offerings, the merit you accumulate is greater than giving it to somebody else, ordinary being. Because the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will never misuse your offering. That is the point. And also, when you practice generosity, give something to give something to somebody else, then if you give it to a person who really needs it, then that is also through that too you accumulate greater merit. And when you make the offerings, when you offer, you have to offer with pure motivation. So pure motivation here is to generate bodhicitta, with the motivation of generating the bodhicitta to benefit others. And when you make the offerings, then you make the offerings whatever you can, clean and the action of making offering should be pure. So you shouldn't offer with the attitude of being proud or arrogant, disrespectful. You have to offer it respectfully by bowing, and I think India has a lot of this. So there's no the Indian tradition, the Indian culture does not lack this kind of respectful of making offerings respectfully and so on. So in the offering, there's the offering of things that are owned by you, okay, owned by you and others. So that is whatever you have, like your body, your wealth, your merit. So basically, in making offering, when you give out, when you practice generosity, three things. One's body for the service of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So for the service of other beings. Then the wealth, the things you have, you offer. And then the merit you accumulate, that also you dedicate for the benefit of others as a bodhisattva. And then, the water offering is, for instance, the water offering is considered really a important practice for offerings, offering practice. Because water, at least, we are not attached, we have less attachment to it. Because when we offer, we have to offer without attachment, without clinging. If you offer it reluctantly, then you don't accumulate that much merit. And also, it said that then your merit accumulated will be some kind of, not pure, it will be kind of mixed. And then you also offer the things that you don't own, such as the treasures, like, the precious jewels that are present in the world, in the universe. Flowers, different kinds of flowers, such as Utpala flower, Mandarava flower. So different kinds of flowers the trees, such as wish-fulfilling trees, all the fruit trees you can offer. Then, so whatever things, actually, if you offer with the pure motivation, without attachment, respectfully, you can offer anything. You can offer anything. For instance, there's a cool, when you feel that cool, gentle breeze in a hot, place, then when you experience that one, then you can, as you enjoy that, you can also offer to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and make aspiration that all beings, mind stream will be cooled by the wisdom of knowing the truth. Because our mind is quite turbulent and boiling all the time because of these turbulent emotions. At least we know that. We are not aware. If you really, examine and go into that, you will find that it's always boiling. So manifestation of which is the physical suffering, such as sickness, imbalance of elements. So you can make aspiration, like you can offer. I was receiving one important teachings on doing the practice, like we have this in the Vajrayana form of the tantric form of Buddhism, we have practice of the preliminary practice. And I was receiving teachings, and my teacher was teaching that, and he said that actually, he said, it is easier to do good things than do bad things. For instance, when we say this, we have that, in the darkness, in Masuri, I think, if you look at Masuri, you see the lights, You can offer that to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and dedicate it for the benefit of other beings, which is easy. If you have to steal something from somebody else, you have to work hard, and it is very risky and dangerous. So it is easier to, but our habit doesn't allow that. So what I'm trying to say that whatever virtuous action you might be trying to do might look small, but you shouldn't overlook that. You shouldn't bypass that. It's important because small things build up and become big. I think these buildings is an aggregation of so many small things. So likewise, merits needs to be accumulated in bits and pieces. Then one most important offering, the outer offering, is the offer one's own body. Body is the most cherished thing we have. We really cherish. We really protect. For the sake of body, we do all kinds of things to nurture, sustain this body. So we need to offer this. But in the beginning, we only mentally offer this, not physically. It's not encouraged to do that in the beginning. So mentally offer to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are enlightened, they have wisdom, they will never ever misuse anybody's body. You have to trust that. And if you offer to them, then through the blessings and the merit you accumulate, your physical negative actions will become less and less. And even your mind will be blessed. And, you will begin to think more positively. Then second is the Yikitubi Chöpa. Is the manifested, manifested offerings, the mental offerings. So here the mental offering is like offering bath to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So it is not that, it is like a divine, celestial, you imagine a divine, celestial bathing chamber made of crystals. And in there, anointed with, strewn with flowers, anointed with perfume and so on. And in there, you imagine and you offer bath to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with scented water, perfumed water. Then you only imagine that. It's kind of a divine, godly kind of, way of making offerings. And as I mentioned this is important because our mind is rigid. We don't want to do that. So if you do that, then you train your mind to make it more flexible and more open and more malleable. So this is the main purpose. The actual purpose of doing all these things is to really make our mind flexible, make our mind soft. At the mind, it is hard. At the moment, it is hard and rigid. And then not only you offer bath and then special divine clothes to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So you do that, and when you do that, what you need to think is that through that, may the defilements, the physical and mental defilements of myself and all other beings be purified through doing that. Because Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they don't have defilements to purify. So it is actually, when you do that side, actually you're doing this side. Doing it for yourself, basically. Because you benefit from doing that. For Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, whether you offer bath or not, that doesn't matter. They don't care. Then you offer the necessities, such as food, drinks, and kind of then also the ornaments. flower garlands. These are very much Indian, actually, classical Indian way of doing this. Offering flower garlands, clothes, scarves, then anointing the body, wiping the body with special kind of clothes, scented and perfumed clothes, and offering the best of the best food. And then also you offer the lights. Light is to open up, to dispel or pacify darkness. Light. So when you offer light, again you can make aspiration. It is said in the commentary that you make aspiration that the darkness of ignorance of all beings is purified or dispelled through making this light offering. It symbolizes wisdom, basically the light. And making offerings through your aspirations is making aspiration that wherever like such this, the big teaching and learning and practice happens, may the flowers rain down or shower down from the heaven, from above. It is believed that when Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma, gave that teachings, discourse in Varanasi, Sarnath, the gods, they shower down the flowers, the rain of flowers. And when Buddha attained Buddhahood, Siddhartha Gautama attained Buddhahood underneath the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, rain of flowers showered down. So likewise, wherever these teachings happen, wherever this, the sound of the Buddha's teaching is made, may the flowers shower down. And also on the representations. The representations of Buddha, the body, speech, and mind. The body is the statues we have here, the rupas, statues. And speech, the text we have, like this one, the scriptures, text, and the representation of Buddha's mind, such as the stupas. So make aspiration that, flowers will rain down, shower down, rain of flowers will shower down on these representations all the time, and the offerings will be present all the time in front of those representations. An unsurpassable offering is to really imagine infinite, unimaginably infinite kind of offerings, divine offering, such as, just as like Bodhisattva Samandabhadra manifest infinite bodies of himself, Bodhisattva, and make offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May I also, you make the aspiration and imagine that may I also be able to manifest infinite yourself, your bodies, infinite bodies of yourself, and make offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Then, Tuabayangi Chöpa. This is the praise, singing praise to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So melodiously singing praise to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, extolling their qualities of body, speech, and mind. The body is endowed with sublime marks and signs. Say speech is endowed with the truth, speaking the truth. Melodies, soft, and having all kinds of, sublime characteristics. It basically means speaking the truth. Buddha is special for speaking the truth. He spoke the truth of dependent arising. That's why he is the best of the speakers. As Nagarjuna says, Buddha is the best and the most supreme speaker because he spoke the truth of dependent arising. So extolling that kind of qualities of speech, you make praise to the Buddhas. And mind, of course, realization, wisdom, and knowledge, clairvoyance. These are side effects anyway. So this is how you make the offerings, and then chaksalwa. So second is doing the prostration. So prostrating to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Prostration is antidote for your pride. It is an antidote for pride because when we are proud and arrogant, it's very difficult for us to bow to anybody else. So in order to bring down that, in order to decrease and get rid of that pride, then we do the prostrations. And also through the prostrations, we basically it is the best method to purify the negativities of one's body. So negative actions, the defilements of negative action, sickness. It also makes sense in the medical sense anyway. When you do prostrations, you get exercise. So, if you have blood pressure or, if you're diabetic, then prostrations do help, I think. And when you do the prostrations, what you need to think is that through these prostrations, you and oneself and all other beings perfect one's own body, speech, and mind as that of the Buddhas. So may all the negativities and defilements be dispelled and purified, and all the sublime qualities, such as the wisdom and knowledge and powers of the Buddha, compassion, be actualized and perfected, and may all attain the unsurpassable state of Buddhahood. So you make that aspiration when you do the prostration. So I'll explain that the Chabdu, the refuge tomorrow, is a big subject in Buddhism, and it is one of the most important, because if you want to take the path to Buddhahood, if you want to really follow and practice the path to Buddhahood, that path begins with taking refuge. It is the foundation of different kinds of path, Buddhist path, or it is the basis on which you build up the precepts. Without taking refuge, you cannot receive the precept, you cannot take the precepts. That's why, it's one reason why human body is considered the best. Because human body supports taking the precepts. Because taking precepts, you have to take refuge. In order to take refuge, you have to generate renunciation, longing for freedom from suffering, and attain certainty, the absolute certainty of Buddhahood. And that you can only do when you experience the mixture of suffering and happiness. Otherwise, there's no reference. For an example, in the God realm, there's no reference, because it's fully indulged, engrossed in pleasure in the God realm. So there's no reference for suffering to generate this longing to be free from suffering. In the lower realms, there's no reference for happiness. There's no reference for bliss. So human body is the most perfect basis on which you build up the precepts. Okay. So if you have one or two questions, I think we have 5 minutes.
Can you explain the most important or the heart of Buddhism when you compare it to other religions? The real core of Buddhism.
Okay. There might be many. There might be quite a few, qualities, unique qualities that distinguishes Buddhism from the teachings of Buddha from other, as I mentioned just now, is the one of the most unique quality, characteristic of Buddhism is the teaching on dependent arising. Dependent arising. Dependent arising. Or the interdependence or dependent arising. So dependent arising, it embodies everything. Even the highest form of Buddha's teachings on the ultimate truth, such as ultimate bodhicitta, shunyata, these are included in there. Dependent arising. Dependent arising also is also like a middle way. One of the most important view in Buddhism is the middle way view. So only through the understanding of dependent arising or interdependence, one can understand and one can accept the middle way view. Middle way view is like not falling into the extreme of nihilism or eternalism. So there is a balance between, relative and the absolute. I think there are so many other wisdom traditions who talk about the view part, the absolute truth part, but really neglect and ignore the relative. That doesn't happen in Buddhism. Especially in the Mahayana, there's no room for that. Yes?
Enlightenment you are telling, how to achieve, everybody is having some enlightenment of wisdom. But what is your concept of it?
I can only generalize here, enlightenment as that, it's based on what has been written in the text, and also the teachings I have received. Enlightenment is actually Buddha. Buddha is ignorance, yes. Da is to wake up from that ignorance. And there are two aspects. There are two aspects in the enlightenment: awakening and perfecting, or I think blossoming. So one is the awakening. Sang means being, when you are able to dispel or awaken, or when you're able to wake up from this ignorance of not knowing the truth, not knowing the nature of mind, then that is called the awakening. So when you wake up from that ignorance. And then the other aspect, there are two aspects, the union of two aspects. The other aspect is that your knowledge, your wisdom, your understanding, everything blossoms. So there are two aspects. That's how it is been philosophically explained, but practically, yes, they are actually. So we have to go slowly. Yeah, practically, more directly, there is also, yes, we have that method, but I think it will be too early to, I think, talk about these things here. If you read, has anyone read the book on retreat given at Vana by our teacher, Zongsa Khyentse Rinpoche? You will find some kind of reference in there, some kind of clue of what is meant by enlightenment, what is meant by wisdom, what is meant by retreat. According to Buddha's teachings, that this happens all the time. In this book, in the beginning, it says, because through the blessings of the Buddhas and your, accumulation of merit, blessings of your wisdom, and then through the power of your merit, it so happens that sometimes, your mind becomes really clear and virtuous. For a snap of a finger, maybe it's a snap of a finger, actually, it's not even the moment. In Buddhism, the moment, you snap of a finger, you divide into 60 parts, and 1/60th of that is the smallest moment. So that kind of, awakening, so to speak, happens. If you can catch that and prolong that, you are enlightened.
My question is, you are giving these teachings and we are educated and we are privileged to get these teachings, but my question is, how can the masses who are uneducated, who are hungry, who are poor, how can they receive these teachings? How can they uplift themselves? Because in the Vaishnav tradition, the gurus have said in Kali Yuga, people have no time and people are engrossed in making a living. Naam is the Adhar. Just by taking the name of the Lord, you can be redeemed. So in the Buddhist tradition, everything that you have covered is pertaining to knowledge, wisdom. But how does the uneducated person gain an enlightenment?
Okay. It also boils down to, again, I have been repeating merit all the time. So connection, karmic connection, we call it, we believe in karmic connection, and also that, the merit. So, beings need merit to, hear this kind of teachings, the wisdom teachings on wisdom. And you as a practitioner, okay, somebody who has, from the other people, who are not privileged. So, because as Buddha said, I can only teach. Okay, I can only teach the truth and the methods to get to the truth. But other than that, beings themselves have to work on that. So they have to be ready to come and listen to the teachings. But, even if you go to the masses and teach to them, maybe 1 or 2 years, yes, some will, make connection. But at the very least, it is said in the Buddha's teachings that even to just, even the sound of this wisdom teachings to go into their ear creates the, the auspicious condition that, because this life is not the end of life, they're like reincarnations. So they will be connected. There are stories related to that. So you actually, On your part, what you can do is to make aspiration that they have this kind of opportunity to study and hear this teaching, the teachings, and also whatever merit. Through this, you have obviously accumulated merit. You can dedicate it for their benefit. Benefit in a sense that they connect to the teachings and they understand what is suffering and what is the cause of suffering, and also they get the message of method to work on this suffering and get away from this suffering. You can do that. Actually, it might be, I think, self-glorifying to mention this. My teacher and his organization, charitable organization, has been trying their best to establish, Buddhist chair in universities so that people can at least, even intellectual level, they can study these teachings, create the facility. So they have done in quite a few universities in the United States, and in India they have this with the Pune University. Rinpoche is even aspiring to establish, that kind of chair in Kabul University. So I think that things are underway to establish that kind of facility in Jerusalem University. I think so. The journey has begun, I think. So the other masters, they are doing that. From the Theravada, they are doing that. From the Tibetan tradition, they are doing that. From the Mahayana, they are also doing that. They are their best, I think. But actually, if you have understood anything, you people can take and share with others. Even just word of what Buddha said, it will make difference. People won't notice now, but one fine day, it will make a big difference. That is what has been said in the teachings. That's nothing I'm making up here. Okay, so I think you have like a biological break.